Hi everyone. So we are going to start at 6:05, just so that we can allow a few more people to join just in case. Thank you. Hi everyone. So before we start at 5 past, I just want to ask whether you have been getting DMs directly from me on my modules, because I started using a a new function on my modules where a lecturer can send a DM to all students regarding any upcoming classes, lesson material being posted on my module. So I just want to confirm whether you guys have been getting that from me, just to see that the function is working properly. Thank you, Chantal, for letting me know. So I think we are going to start. In the meantime, So if you can just allow me just 10 seconds to share a copy of today's presentation. Please note that the presentation copy has been uploaded on my modules, which you should have gotten a direct message from me about that. If you're unable to access the PowerPoint presentation, then please drop me an email and let me know. So before I start, let me just get a thumbs up from everyone that you can all see my PowerPoint presentation for today. Okay, perfect. So today's today's workshop is going to focus on how do we write a drama text or a screenplay. And I believe that a number of you are going to find this extremely helpful, especially for assessment 3. Assessment 2, you are essentially setting the scene or you are preparing for assessment 3. So I hope that by the end of today's workshop, you will find this extremely helpful. So what we are going to be covering in today's session is that I'm going to do my group check-in with you all just to see how the week has been. Then we're going to talk about drama, what drama is, what is a stage play, and when you write a stage play, what is it that you need to consider? What are the important components that you must consider when devising a play? Also, we are going to look at what you should avoid when writing a stage play, basically common mistakes to avoid when writing a stage play. Then we're going to look at the conventions of writing a stage play as well as the format. Then afterwards, we're going to do a little activity, a 5-minute activity, which I hope you will find it very helpful for the portfolio. Then afterwards, we're going to touch on the screenplay, what the screenplay is, what are the key components that you should take note of when devising a screenplay, as well as the format of writing a screenplay. Please note that if you guys have any questions, please feel free to type your question in the chat box, or alternatively, raise your hand and then I will recognize you. Just remember to unmute your microphone once I have recognized you. So to kickstart today's webinar, I just want to do a little check-in with you guys. So today it is the 2nd of September, meaning it is spring officially, or maybe not, because there are some days that are still insanely cold. Some days are quite raining, or there's a bit of drizzle here and there, which is somewhat confusing, given the fact that it's supposed to be spring. So in 60 seconds, I would really like you to comment on the chat box using either an emoji, a GIF, or just a simple phrase where you picture how your week has been. And I'm very, very curious to know. So just to share on my side, mine has been quite busy because I've been occupied with a lot of marking that I would like to get done as soon as possible. So that's how my week has been. I've just been immersed into a lot of marking. So just in 60 seconds, in a minute, in a space of 60 seconds, please comment on the chat box, just sharing how your week has been. Thanks, Chantal, for using a gift from SpongeBob SquarePants. I find him to be someone who's very expressive with his feelings, especially when it comes to how he is feeling. What is he doing? How does he feel when he does certain things? So thank you so much, Chantal, for sharing. Thank you. Thank you, Maurice. The week has been productive so far. Cape Town was very sunny today. Yes, that's quite It's quite interesting to know because, I've been watching the news on what's been going on in Cape Town weather-wise, where, there was some really, really cold days in Cape Town, but the last 2 or 3 days it has been sunny, which is quite good. So thank you so much for sharing. I see we have some people that are still typing, sharing how their week has been. So while we wait, for me, I personally decided to use Killian. I think that's how you say his name, Killian Murphy, because I find him to be he's very good with his facial expressions. Like if he's bored with something, then it is so easy to tell on his face and just his overall demeanor on how he is, how he's feeling. So a student here says a week is going to be hectic because four assignments are due next week. Ah, shame, man. I'm so sorry. But yeah, just remember, try and not freak out. Given the fact that there are so many assignments due in one week. Yeah, just try and not freak out. Just take it easy. Take it by the day. Chantal says it's been busy. I finally managed to submit one of my assignments last night after not knowing what else to write and drawing a blank. Another one due today, that I've received an extension for until Friday. Saturday was very hot and sunny in Neisner. Same here, same as today. It's one of those hot days where your chest actually um feels very tight. Thanks so much for sharing, Chantal. I think I might know which module you might be referring to. Maria says, my week has been hectic with schoolwork, but I managed to get a lot of work done. I am left with one assignment. I had a burnout. Oh, I'm so, so sorry to hear about that. Just remember to be very, very careful when you get a burnout. If each time you have a burnout, it must be a reminder that you need to be very kind to yourself and also to your body. And then Reddy says, very exhausted from work travel that I just came back from during this weekend. I'm still trying to find my footing into my usual routine. Eventually you will find your footing eventually. So thank you so much for sharing. So we've gotten some interesting responses on how the week has been. And thank you so much, everyone, for sharing. And I think also from my side as a lecturer, I think just what I can say is, despite the demands that you have at work or even at school, for example, you have so many assignments that are due within a week, or you have more than two assignments that you need to submit on the same day. Just remember, always remember to be extremely kind to your body, be extremely kind to your mind, and more importantly, be very kind to yourself. I feel like, when we have a lot of deadlines, we need to remind ourselves of that. So let us proceed to contextualizing drama. So drama here, according to Mark Fortier, he says that it is a common written language where words are ascribed or transcribed to characters in a theatre space, and this is spoken by actors. So notice how I underline the words ascribed or transcribed, and these are done to characters that takes place in a theatre setting, spoken or performed by actors. So in contemporary theatre, drama here is concerned with the relationship between the play and performance. So notice how I used one of the prescribed books in your prerequisite, which is your THL. And this book essentially talks about what drama is. So a hint here would be to consult the material that you were familiar with when you were completing your prerequisites. And this is going to be very helpful, especially when deciding which conventions of drama are you going to use to write a play. So some very helpful prescribed books for this section would be the play, a manual by Marissa Clearis, and also the THR study guide. Okay. So when we look at the stage play, um, in relation to drama, the stage play here, it is a piece of text which is devised by a playwright, in this case, you, the student, where you are specifying how must this play be performed, who is performing in this play, and how many people should be performing in this text. So in essence, you're deciding which characters, who are the characters in your text, how many characters are there in this text, and how should these characters perform in the text. The stage plays specify where the text is performed, and also you are essentially providing a layout of the performance space or the theatre setting. So in other words, is this play taking place in the living room? Is this play taking place in a restaurant? Is this play taking place in a courtroom, for example? So the stage play here is also a type of text that is intended to be performed for a live audience. So remember, when you are tasked to write a play, a one act play, you need to write it with the intention of it to be performed to a live audience. The stage play here um, has dialogue which takes place between characters, and it is divided into various scenes and acts, and thus creating a dramatic effect. So for the portfolio, some of you would have read that you're only required to write a one act play. Some of you in your portfolio would have read that you are only required to write a play that has three acts and so forth. So when you write the stage play, please remember to consider the following. Right? So the very first thing is the plot and also the log stage play. So yeah, the plot here is what is your play about? So are you writing about perhaps a wife being exposed or having an affair with her brother-in-law? What are the overall themes in your dramatic text? Do you want to explore the themes of femicide, mind control, gender-based violence? The list literally goes on and on. And is there any conflict or climax? And if so, how is this going to be resolved? So a very simple example, it is a text that most of you should know because a lot of you used it in your THL module, is Green Man Flashing by Mike von Kahn. So the second aspect is to consider who are these characters in your stage play. How will they interact with one another? Are these characters going to be fond of each other, or is there some kind of tension between these characters, or do these characters literally just hate each other for various reasons? And what are the theatrical conventions um, that you're going to apply in your stage play? So are you going to make use of monologues? Are you going to incorporate use of monologue in your play? Are you going to make use of a soliloquy? Are your characters going to be performing a soliloquy here and there? Are your characters going to be performing, are the actors in your play going to be performing more than one? So that is what I mean by theatrical conventions. Remember, with the theatrical conventions, you do not have to use all of them when you are doing the assignment. You can just simply select the conventions that you feel are applicable to the play that you are writing. So if, for example, you feel that I'm only going to be using the monologue and it will be in just one scene, then that is perfect. Thirdly, you have to consider the aesthetic of your stage play. So this here should be linked to the theme of your play. So if, for example, your what would the overall aesthetic would be? Would it be something that is, dark? Would it be something that is quite neutral, or something that is quite, light, not melancholic, and so forth? So here, um, as a playwright, you have to have a very clear idea of what your envision, what your lighting will be to prevent your vision, in essence, being changed, drastically changed by the director. I would say this particular last point is applicable in the practical sense. When you actually decide to have this play be put on the stage, this is when you, as a playwright, should take into consideration what kind of lighting am I envisioning in this play, and you kind of have to be very prescriptive about it so that the director doesn't come in and make all of these changes, and it doesn't speak to the vision that you had for this play. So when you write a play, please remember to avoid the following. And these are some of the very common mistakes that I have picked up from students in past portfolios that I feel it should be very important that I stress them to you guys. So with the dialogue, please do not, and I plead with you, and this is something that I have seen, please do not use open and closed inverted commas in your dialogue. This is only applicable to your short story, right? Very good example here would be the character name followed by the line, and then the character's line, and it's written in quotation marks. Please do not do that. This kind of writing only belongs in the short story. Please avoid unnecessary monologues or soliloquies. Only use it when it is really, really necessary. Try and not overuse it. For example, character A is saying a monologue, and then character B responds by saying another monologue, and then character C responds to character A and B by saying another monologue. Please avoid overusing um, the monologues and soliloquies. Avoid writing a play that has no action or even a solid ending. And here, this is simply because your reader, and your reader here in this case with the marker, cannot keep up with a boring conversation that is between two people and there's literally no action. So for you as a writer, you have to try and like spice things up, be very creative, blow your reader dialogue that is very boring, generic, or cliche, or even like very, very simple. And there is nothing more painful than reading a line in a play that says, I love you with all my heart. Your reader here is going to weep with such disappointment, so much disappointed at when reading actually blast my mind into smithereens and then weep because of the cliche, generic dialogue in the play. So please avoid using that kind of dialogue, and avoid, using characters that, who actually provide their own biographical sketch in the form of a dialogue. So, in other words, characters who do too much telling of who they are, as opposed to the reader picking up who these characters are, and what role they actually play. So this is where you need to show, like, don't tell us too much. You need to show, and as readers, we must pick up that, oh, okay, character A is from this background. She is someone who is very determined, and people tend to conflate this with someone who is quite arrogant. She has her flaws here and there, but being a perfectionist and being meticulous, which often um, i- uh, um, irritates people, is what makes her human. So let us then look at the conventions of a stage play. So what are the conventions of a stage play? So here, when writing your play, you need to have a plot, logline, character setting, and structure of your play. And when you keep this in mind, you have to decide which theatrical conventions are going to be applicable in your dramatic text. So when I say theatrical conventions, I'm talking about Marissa's textbook called The Play and Manual from pages 10 to 15. So here, as a writer, you need to decide which one of these conventions are you going to apply or utilize in your text. You can decide to maybe use one. You can maybe decide to only use two. You can maybe decide to only use three, but you do not necessarily have to use all of them in the case of writing doing assessment three. If perhaps you were writing a play and you want to get it published out there, then perhaps you might find yourself using all of the theatrical conventions in playwriting. But in the case of your portfolio, try and be very selective in terms of which convention do you want to use, right? So some very common conventions are the use of aside, the use of monologue, soliloquy, directly addressing the audience, the role play, and a play within a play. So, in your own time, I would really like you to read through each of these theatrical conventions, and then in the next session, we are going to reflect on these theatrical conventions where I will ask one of you to explain to me what you understand by, for example, a role by a play within a play or the direct address of the audience. So then we're going to be looking at the format of writing a stage play. So first and foremost, your play needs to have an eye-catching title. So some of you who have started sending in their drafts, you will notice that the first thing that I commented on when giving me a play to read is the title. And the title of your play needs to hold some significance to the content of your play. In other words, the title should allude to the themes that you are exploring in your play, overarching themes, and also it should also inform the genre of your play. Genre being, is it a suspense? Is it, immersive? Is it social justice theater? Is it in your face theater? That type of thing. And on a separate page, what you should do is that you need to list all your characters, and then you need to briefly explain who they are, and where applicable, what relationship do they have with another character in your play. So, for example, we have Mastolo, who's a life orientation teacher at a secondary school in Grahamstown, and then we have Asanda, who's also a natural sciences teacher at the very same secondary school in Grahamstown, and she is a wife to Mastolo. So that is what I mean when I say that where applicable, you have to specify, does this character have any kind of relationship with another character in your play? Remember to please provide a log line for the play, and the log line here should be at least 2 sentences where you capture the play's direction, where the play is heading, and also things that is going to unfold. So, for example, good log line here is a physical altercation occurs between two close friends, Dali and Sandile. Sandy accidentally pushes Daly, hitting his head against a coffee table, thus bleeding out from his head. So what the log line does is that you are essentially trying to convince the reader or the marker, why must we continue reading? Why should we continue reading this piece of this literary text? Then at the top of your page, top either aligned center, middle, or aligned left, provide a scene and an act number of your play. So some playwrights, for example, like to be very creative with this and provide a title for the scene number or the act number. So for example, the playwright here might say Act 1, Scene 1, give it a title, Terror in Refugee. So describe the scene. When you describe the scene of your play, remember to write all of this information in italics. So describing the scene of your play is normally written just before the dialogue commences between your characters. This should be written in italics. I cannot stress this enough because in the past, students have omitted this vital piece of information. Describe your scene in italics, and this should be written in as much detail as you can. If there are any objects in the scene, like a bed, a couch, crockery, paintings, chairs, etc., you have to describe where are these objects being placed and how are these objects being placed. So this is describing the scene of your play before the dialogue even commences. So a very good example here of the format of writing a stage play. This is an excerpt, which is an excerpt from Mike von Claren's Green Man Flashing. So you'll see that I underlined two important pieces of information. The first one being the name of the character. It must be capitalized followed by a colon, right? This punctuation mark where you write the name of the character followed by the colon is optional, right? If you look at this particular excerpt, you will notice that the playwright capitalizes the character's name and then writes it in bold, but then omits the colon. So you have two options here. Write the name of the character in capital letters followed by a colon, or write the name of the character in capital letters but omit the colon. The second piece of vital information that I underlined is how a character, what action is the character doing when dialogue commences, right? So here, this piece of information must be italicized and also written in brackets. So here you will see that Lutando says that you got yourself a good deal, lady. Then she pauses. And then she proceeds to say, you were lucky to have Comrade Machova. And then in brackets, it specifies, the playwright here is specifying that while she is saying this, she is gesturing towards the door. Continues with the dialogue. And then again, the playwright here specifies that while Lutando is saying, if it was up to me, she is shaking, he's shaking his head. So all the action that is done by the character while he or she is speaking, you need to write this in italics and in brackets. All right. So are we still following here with the format of writing a stage play? Are there any questions that anyone may have before I continue? Okay, perfect. So just remember, before the dialogue commences, when you are describing the setting of your play or the opening scene, all of that must be written in brackets. And you have to write it within as much detail as you possibly can. Any objects that are in the scene, state what these objects are, where are these objects placed, all right? And then with the character names, write it in capital letters, followed by the colon or you can write in capital letters and then omit the colon. So what I want us then to do is just a very small activity, 5-minute activity, which for many of you, you will find it helpful for assessments 2 and 3. So in the space of 5 minutes, see if you can write the following as the opening scene of your play in which you're going to prepare for assignments 2 and 3. So you're going to write the act, specify the act number and the scene number. If you want to give it a title, you're more than welcome to do that. Provide a log line. Remember, I said that the log line shouldn't exceed 2 sentences. Describe the setting of your play and any characters in the setting of your play. So what are they doing? Is Dadukolo, for example, frantically pacing up and down in a waiting room because he is very anxious about his test results. So the possibilities here are simply endless. So in this activity, while I allocate 5 minutes, I'm going to go back to the previous slide where you will use this excerpt as a guide, as a guideline into doing this activity. And then what you will do at 22, yeah, let's make it 22. At 22, please share what you have written by commenting on the chat box. Okay, so I'm going to give you exactly 5 minutes, which starts now.
Excuse me. I just wanted to find out what exactly it's Act 1, Scene 2, then you write your log line, and then what else you have to do? I forgot, if you don't mind.
Okay, no problem. So give us an act number and a scene number. You can give this a title. Then you give us a log line, followed by the setting, describe the setting of your play. And then in that setting, you can describe if there are any characters. If there are characters, remember, specify what are they doing. For example, is this character frantically pacing up and down because he's waiting for his test results?
Thank you. Sorry again. Can you please go back to the other slide?
There we go.
Thank you.
So I'll give you just an extra 2 minutes. While you are doing this activity, I would also like to know how are you guys finding the assignments? Are there any challenges that you want me to be aware of that I need to address? Please specify what they are by commenting in the chat box. I see we have a few people that are busy typing in the chat box. So while the students are typing, what I also find very helpful when doing this, or let's say writing a play for your assignment, is I always start off by consulting plays that have been published by South African authors, South African playwrights, as opposed to international playwrights like your Samuel Beckett, your um, uh, Bernard Shaw, and so forth. So sometimes it's always helpful to read up on plays written by South African playwrights and just see what conventions, what theatrical conventions they used in the text, and also just how they formatted how they formatted the stage play. So I always find that very, very helpful. Hmm, very interesting. So we have a comment by Maria, and From this task, she wrote the following: Act 1, Scene 1. Act 1, Scene 1. Log line. Sometimes dreams are killed by those who are supposed to nurture them. Very, very intriguing, by the way. Setting: a public school classroom in Hlakahlakano High School during English period. Characters: Lerato is reading a novel as usual, and other learners are talking, while others are standing up. Mr. Kwena enters the classroom and tells Lerato that she will fail because she is always reading. Wow, very interesting. It makes me want to actually read more, like the dialogue between Lerato and also Mr. Kwena. It'll be quite interesting to see whether Mr. Kwena is actually emblematic, is an emblem of a person who is trying to kill, figuratively speaking, trying to kill this dream that is supposed to be nurtured by that person who is seen as a role model. So it really makes me want to read more, especially the tension, the tension that is the tension between Lerato and Mr. Gwena. Like, how does it start? How is it um, escalated? Very interesting. Thank you so much for sharing, Maria. So Lynette wrote was wondering what to write in task 3 of assignment 2, where I am required to write about the time-saving tips for writing fiction have influenced my short story in assignment 3, because I haven't gotten to writing my short story. I think this is are you referring to the 1601 module? If if I'm not mistaken, please let me know, Lynette, if I am correct, or maybe you're referring to another module. Okay. Um, Okay, so what you are essentially doing is that you have to read that reading that talks about time saving tips and see how can you practically or let me say how can you situate this within the broader theoretical framework of what the author is saying by practically applying how you're going to implement that towards preparing assignment assignment 3. I hope that makes sense. So in essence, you are reading it, you are acknowledging what that author is saying, but now where you come in is you are like, okay, how can I then use what the author is saying and apply it in my assignment 3? Um, am I like which strategy, which aspects am I going to practically apply that the author speaks of in my assignment? Yeah. So Chantal has commented, which is from this short exercise. I'm just going to read in case you can't see it. So Audrey just narrowly escaped with her life. She and Brandon had been in a shootout a few blocks away and were now wanted fugitives. They are hiding behind a deserted building in the heart of Cape Town. Oh, very, very, very intriguing. I'm just quite interested before I get to the dialogue, how Audrey and Brandon, given the fact that they had survived this shootout and are now wanted fugitives, how are they actually dressed? Um, like what do they look like as wanted fugitives? Are they in prison uniform? Are they in are they wearing dirty clothes to illustrate the impact of having survived a shootout? Like, how do they look like as people who have escaped um, from the shootout? Dialogue, Audrey. Things weren't supposed to have turned out this way. Brandon, what the hell was that? I thought you'd given them clear instructions. Bites his nail while assessing Audrey's changing facial expressions. So I think where you can, just to add to what Brandon is saying, because you indicated that when he is saying, I thought you'd given them clear instruction, and then he starts biting his thumbnail almost like someone who is a little bit anxious and also a bit irritated. I think instead of writing a full stop at the end of that sentence next to the word instructions, write an exclamation mark for consistency, because the first line where he says, "What the hell was that?" to show that he's actually shouting, you used a question mark and two exclamation marks. And I feel like that needs to be carried out, that needs to be carried through when he says, "I thought you'd given them instructions," but use an exclamation mark instead of a full stop. And then Audrey says, you're not the one sporting a bullet graze on the ear, strokes the sore ears and flinches. So ease up. Okay. Okay, good. Then Brianna says, "What happened, Audrey? Everything went smoothly until he showed up. Why was he even there?" Okay, this is quite good. A slight technical feedback here. When a character is asking a question and that character is shouting, most students will use an exclamation mark followed by a question mark, when in actual fact it should be the other way around. So here it should be question mark followed by exclamation mark, not the other way around. So that's just a small technical um, thing that you must just rectify. And then Muteba wrote Act 1, Scene 1, logline. Nomsa Milano's mother gets back from a job to find their 3-year-old do- daughter, Milani, missing, and his father, who was meant to be looking after her, sleeping in a sofa in a lounge with a few beers on the coffee table. Setting a dining table on the stage left. I think that's what you're meant to write. Instead of saying on the left side of the stage, just say stage left. A brown sofa on stage right, and a small coffee table in front of the sofa. Nomsa walks into the stage, hurriedly opening the door, sounding of a door opening, shouting, "Muzi, Muzi." Remember, okay, this is good. Um, okay, I think I get what you were saying. Um, I think if a character, right, is shouting or saying something, try and write it as a dialogue. So instead of writing, shouting, "Mosi, Mosi," just write a new paragraph where you state the name of the character in bold letters, and then you write Mosi, Mosi. But here, if a character is shouting, again, this needs to be played out in your choice of punctuation marks. In this case, the exclamation point. So Taneo here wrote Act 1, Scene 1, logline, a decision made, but at what cost? Setting, Lana and Theo are in the dining room of their shared home. Characters, Theo has lost his love for Lana. He found out that Lana has betrayed him financially and gave trade secrets of the family business. Interesting. Lana pleads for their family and marriage, but a decision has been made. Thank you so much, Tanil. Just a slight technical issue to rectify here. I think it should be Lana pleads for her family instead of their family. So she is pleading for her family and her marriage, but at a decision that has been made. Because when I read um, the sentence, Lana pleads for their family and their marriage, I'm like thinking to myself, oh wait, so is Lana non-binary? Is that the case? So just be very careful and very selective in your choice of words. But otherwise, I am quite reasonably pleased with what you have written so far. So thank you so much for sharing what you have done in this activity. This is going to be, a lot of you are going to find this extremely helpful for assessment 2 and 3. So now we're going to get into the screenplay. So the screenplay is a written document um, where you are outlining the story, the character, the dialogue, and the visual elements for either a film or a television show. And this is what Michael Tiona says on what a screenplay is. For those who want to do further reading on Michael Tiona, it is from a book called Aristotle Poetics for Screenwriters. And he talks about what the screenplay is, what the process of writing this of drafting a screenplay is. So the screenplay here is essentially the blueprint for the production team, including the director, the producer, the actor, and the crew, to follow when they are creating the final product. So when you are writing a screenplay, you need to have a concept, right? Consider the font, the format, and the font. So the most commonly used font for a screenplay is Courier Sans. However, for the assignment, this is only applicable to those who are going to be doing the screenplay. For the assignment, you must use either Times New Roman or Arial. Also remember the characters in your screenplay that the audience are either going to relate to or dislike. So this is where now I'm going back to the character of the Joker, where the Joker is some kind of anti-hero because a lot of viewers actually relate to his ideologies of his perception of the world, what it means to be a good person, what it means to be a bad person. And also, last but most importantly, how do your characters speak in your screenplay? In essence, how they are set apart from one another. So here we're going to be looking at the format for writing the screenplay, and you will notice that I actually used Arial um, uh, for writing a screenplay. So first things first, I'm going to only speak about the sections that I have highlighted, which is indicative of the format of the screenplay. So the first one is the term fade in, which you write on the far right hand side. Remember, this phrase indicates that the scene is opening, the opening scene, that we use the term fade in. This is written in capital letters and it must be followed by a colon, right? Then you have the setting, right? You will see that the setting is written as INT, which is an abbreviation for interior. Does it take place inside? If it takes place outside, you use the abbreviation EXT. So you write the abbreviation for whether it takes place inside or outside, followed by a full stop. Then followed by the place where it takes place. And the place here, you are writing it in capital letters, right? Followed by a dash and specifying the time of day. So is it taking place during the day, in the morning, or at night? Remember, the setting of your screenplay is written in capital letters, but please take note of the punctuation used to specify the setting, in this case, the full stop and the dash. Then, unlike the drama text, when describing a scene, it is written in italics. Now, with the screenplay, you're actually omitting this. You do not write you're not describing the scene in italics. You're just writing it like how you would write a normal paragraph, except if you are mentioning characters that are the in the scene, the names of the characters must be written in capital letters. Okay. Then with the dialogue, the name of the character must be written in the middle of your page, as seen here where I've highlighted it in red. Sihle. write it in capital letters, and it has to be written in the middle, right? So with the play, the name of the characters was written on the left-hand side, but with the screenplay, you write it in the middle of the text, right? And then it is followed by dialogue. The section that I've highlighted in purple, which indicates what the character is doing, you will see it is written in brackets, but it is not italicized. So in the drama text, any action that is done by the character, it is written in italics, written from the left-hand side onwards. But in the screenplay, the action that is done by the character, it is not written in italics, but it is also written center in the middle. Okay, so like those are the four important components to take note of when writing your screenplay. But I think this would be applicable to only the third years who are going to be working on the portfolio. But I just felt that perhaps it would be important to also cover how to write a screenplay in case this is something that you really want to venture into. So before I officially bring this session to a close, I just want to find out if anyone has any questions, whether it is the assignment, this this workshop, any questions? Also, one of the reasons why I like to end off each session by asking the audience, does anyone have any questions regarding the assignment or the workshops? I think it's also to prevent um, a situation that you find yourself in where your assignment is due in the next 24 hours, there's something you're not sure of. You decide to reach out to either me or Prof, and like you get an automated response from us saying that nope, we are busy focusing on marking and emails are going to be looked at intermittently. So any questions that you have, please feel free to ask. So Chantal asks, is it fine to make use of an A4 table calendar to write on and take photos of that for the planning part of the essay? Yes, you are more than welcome to do that, Chantal. Hence it being called creative writing, because you must be creative when doing that writing task. So I see Maria is has typed something. So before we end today's session, we're going to look at her comment. Mine is not a question. There is someone who asked you to go back to the previous page of the presentation. I would like to let them know that in the main page of the meeting, there are two arrows that they can use to scroll. Yes. Yeah, so what I did for today's presentation was that I did not enable private viewing. I set it to public viewing, which allowed you as the viewer to click back to scroll back to the previous presentation or scroll to the next page. So thanks, Maria, for pointing that out. So so what I will do, I'm just going to stop. Okay, thanks for telling me, Maria. Please keep on doing it. It helps. Okay, now then I'll continue. I'll keep it like I'll stick to doing my presentations this way. So what I'll do is I'm just going to stop recording and bring the session to a close. So thank you everyone for